Steven Seagal is a famous action movie actor who became really popular in the 1980s and 1990s, but his life has been full of both amazing success and really difficult times. His real name is Steven Frederick Seagal, and he was born on April 10th, 1952, in Lansing, Michigan. His dad, Samuel, was a math teacher, and his mom, Patricia, worked as a medical technician. They weren't rich, but they worked hard to take care of their family. When Steven was little, he was very sick with asthma, which made it really hard for him to breathe. While other kids were running around and playing outside, Steven had to stay inside because his breathing was so bad. Many nights, his parents stayed awake worried that he might stop breathing completely. The cold winters in Michigan made his asthma even worse. So when Steven was 5 years old, his family moved to California hoping the warm weather would help him get better. The move to California did help Steven breathe easier, but he was still a skinny, weak kid who got picked on at school. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, Steven decided he wanted to become strong. When he was 22 years old in 1974, Steven did something that most people thought was impossible. He moved to Japan to learn martial arts. In the 1970s, very few Americans were allowed to train in traditional Japanese martial arts schools, but Steven was determined to learn. In Japan, he met a woman named Miyako Fujitani, who was the daughter of a martial arts master. She was already a black belt and a teacher herself. Steven and Miyako fell in love and got married. Through her, Steven was able to train in a martial art called Aikido, which focuses on using an opponent's strength against them rather than just hitting and kicking. The training in Japan was incredibly hard and painful. Steven was thrown to the ground over and over again until his whole body hurt. Many of the Japanese students and teachers didn't think an American should be learning their martial arts, so they were extra tough on him. There were many times when Steven wanted to give up, but he kept going. After years of hard work, Steven became one of the first Americans ever to run a martial arts school in Japan. This was a huge accomplishment that shocked everyone who had doubted him. In the early 1980s, Steven returned to America and opened his own martial arts school in Los Angeles with a partner. At first, the school struggled to make money, and Steven had to work other jobs just to pay the bills. He worked behind the scenes on movies, helping actors learn how to fight for their roles. He was always dreaming of being in front of the camera instead of behind it. But no one in Hollywood thought he had what it takes to be a movie star. Then in 1988, when Steven was 36 years old, he finally got his big break. He starred in a movie called Above the Law, and audiences loved him. Unlike other action stars who were big and muscular, Steven was calm and quiet. But when he fought, it looked real and dangerous because he actually knew how to fight.
The movie was a hit, and suddenly Steven Seagal became one of Hollywood's newest action stars. Steven made several more successful movies in the early 1990s, including Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and Out for Justice. But his biggest success came in 1992 with a movie called Under Siege, where he played a Navy cook who had to save a battleship from terrorists. The movie made over $150 million worldwide and proved that Steven was a major movie star. For a few years, Steven was one of the most popular action stars in the world, right alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. But Steven's personal life was much more complicated than his movie success. When he left Japan to pursue his Hollywood dreams, he had to leave behind his wife Miyako and their 2 children. This was very painful for everyone involved, especially the kids who grew up mostly without their father. Steven later married an actress named Adrienne LaRussa, but that marriage only lasted a few months. Then in the late 1980s, he married Kelly LeBrock, a beautiful model and actress. They seemed like the perfect Hollywood couple and had 3 children together. For a while, they appeared to have everything: fame, money, and a beautiful family. But fame put a lot of pressure on their marriage. Steven was always working on movies, traveling, and busy with his career. There were also rumors that he wasn't faithful to his wife. Kelly felt lonely and had to raise their 3 children, mostly by herself. By the mid-1990s, their marriage fell apart, and they got divorced. This was very hard on Steven because he lost daily contact with another set of children. Unfortunately, Steven's movie career also started declining around the same time. In 1994, he made a movie called On Deadly Ground, which he also directed. He put a lot of personal passion into this film, including messages about protecting the environment, but audiences didn't like it, and it failed at the box office. After that, Steven's movies stopped playing in theaters and went straight to video stores instead. This was very embarrassing for someone who had once been a huge movie star. Going from having his face on giant movie posters to having his movies sold in discount bins was extremely painful for Steven. He tried to start a music career, releasing albums where he played blues guitar and sang. Some people liked his music, but many critics made fun of him, which hurt his feelings even more. He also tried various business ventures, including energy drinks and video games, but most of these failed and lost him money. He even had to sell his big mansion in Tennessee for much less than it was worth. During this difficult time, Steven got married for a fourth time to a Mongolian woman named Erdenetria Batsik, who had been working as his translator. They had a son together named Kunzang. This marriage has lasted longer than his others, and Steven says it has brought him peace in his later years. However, by this time Steven was already the father of 7 children from his different marriages, and he admits he wasn't able to be there for all of them the way he should have been. As Steven got older, his body started showing the effects of all those years of martial arts training and movie stunts. His joints hurt, he gained weight, and he couldn't move as quickly as he used to. The same physical skills that had made him famous were now causing him pain every day. He also had some health scares that reminded him that he wasn't going to live forever. Today, Steven Seagal is 71 years old and lives quietly on a large property in Arizona. The house has bulletproof glass and is surrounded by tall walls, almost like a fortress. He's worth about $14 million, which is a lot of money, but much less than other action stars from his era who stayed popular longer. He still has some nice cars and lives comfortably, but he's much more private now and rarely appears in movies. Steven spends his time with his wife and youngest son, practices martial arts lightly to stay in shape, and sometimes works on small film projects. He's also a grandfather now, which brings him joy but also reminds him of all the family time he missed when he was focused on his career. Looking back on Steven Seagal's life, we can see both the good and bad sides of fame. He achieved his dream of becoming a movie star and made millions of people around the world enjoy his films. He proved that even a weak, sick child can become strong through hard work and determination. He was one of the first people to bring authentic martial arts to Hollywood movies. But his success also came at a high price. His focus on his career damaged his relationships with his wives and children. He struggled with the transition from being a huge star to being less popular. He made some business decisions that lost him money, and he had to deal with people making fun of him when his career declined. The most important lessons from Steven Seagal's life are that success doesn't guarantee happiness, that family relationships are more important than fame, and that everyone, even tough action heroes, can struggle with getting older and facing health problems. His story shows us that real strength isn't just about being able to fight or being famous, but about learning from your mistakes, taking care of your family, and finding peace as you get older. Steven Seagal's life reminds us that everyone has both victories and defeats, and that the most important thing is how you handle both the good times and the difficult times.